Roots Hall at the Bach Center. I'm a touring musician. I'm a retired kindergarten teacher. I'm a storyteller who still tells stories in schools. And I've worked with Reggie Harris, who's going to be introducing himself as well. And I'm happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Reggie Harris, and we're probably related somewhere back in the ether. Certainly related by music, and I'm a musician, storyteller, educator, many things. I've gotten off all boards at this point, and I was the co-president of the Living Legacy Project, an organization that, through music and storytelling, and also physical journeys to the civil rights sites of the civil rights movement, helps people to understand and appreciate the lessons of civil rights and its movements here in America. I am happy to be here and happy to be part of NERFA and Folk Alliance, and a very committed activist to using music to create conversation and possibility. So,
Jillian?
Hi, everyone. Jillian Matundan here. I'm based in Northern Virginia, but I work in DC. So that's where I'm talking to you all from today. I'm not. I'm still a baby touring artist. By that I mean I do a lot of shows, but I'm still learning the touring thing and trying to get out there more. I am also obviously a singer-songwriter, but I work in the labor movement, and so that is what I do during the day, and write songs when I'm not doing that as much as I can. I've been a member of NERFA for uh, let's see, a while now. I don't even know. Can't. What is time really? And um, I I am also the president of Focus Music here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. We are a organization that puts on shows throughout this area and Charlottesville. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here with all of you.
Cool. Well, I guess we could talk forever about what it's like to be touring in today's sort of, I guess, political climate or climate in general, and maybe some of our panelists can talk about, you know, how do you handle the audience and how do you handle well, how do you handle the geographical space you're in? Because, I know that Kemp tours and Reggie, you tour all over the, country, and you've been touring in the South as well. And yeah, Kemp, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to just say that Amy is there as well. And I wasn't sure if Amy wanted to introduce herself or you, because you were part of putting this thing together too. So I was just looking, going through.
Yes, actually, it was Amy's brainchild. So maybe you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about it.
I planted a seed. That's all I did. I was a seed. I've had people coming up to me and asking about protest songs and wanting to know where the current generation of protest songs is. So when the Folk Plus hit the radar, I thought, well, maybe this is a good opportunity to start talking about, even if it's not the song itself, about the environment in which those songs are being created and performed and things like that. So I am absolutely delighted that other people thought it was a good idea, and even more delighted that we have Kemp and
Did we lose her?
now she furrows.
Rose.
Oh, she froze. Oh, it was such a good space there. We'll get her back.
I think we got our point.
Yeah.
Already.
Reggie, did you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing? And
Sure. I started, like a lot of musicians, performing because it was fun and because uh, it was an obvious lead to fame and stardom and great riches. And along the way, had just a number, well, coming out of a community in Philadelphia that really used song as community building, and back to the time of slavery, using song to really put people in a place where they could acknowledge who they are, and then also use music to try to shift and change what their situation was. I, like most young people, until I was about 20 or so, I just considered all of that music that I was singing and hearing was, old folk stuff. However, when the civil rights movement came in with the Freedom Singers and Pete Seeger and Richie Havens and all these, Joni Mitchell and all these amazing, and then of course the other popular musicians, all of that started to connect for me. It took years, but finally I just realized that song has a remarkable power. Now, as an artist, it did take a while certainly in my writing, and then with having an opportunity, because of the Philadelphia Folk Song Society, to start going into schools, I also recognized that a lot of what I was seeing in the world could be addressed through song. So I've spent years, first with my wife and partner Kim, and then on my own as a solo, and in collaboration with other artists like Greg Greenway and Kemp Harris and Alistair Mook, developing a way to have difficult conversations, to open windows of discussion using music. And over the last 35 years, that landscape has changed, as we all know, dramatically. So the first thing I want to say is that I think the first and foremost point I want to make is that whatever you choose to do, whether you choose to be an artist who's inviting conversation, or whether you're choosing to write from a stance of putting information out there in a more aggressive way, protest songs as we would call them, whatever you do, it's important that you figure out what your own passions and your own authentic self is. I think the fact of you're not trying, I don't think, the point is that you do not want to try to walk into a situation and try to be something that you envision that is not you. So you have to figure out what your message is, and you have to figure out where you kind of sit in the political landscape. The biggest change, I think, these days is that we are so polarized as a nation, and really as a world, but particularly as a nation, that you really have to think carefully, I think, about the way in which you're going to incite the conversation. And also, the idea of writing songs, I think, in the classic, in your face political, dressed down people, these days turns more people off than it invites them in. And it's a time, I think, that our ability to be creative and our ability to be honest and our ability to use the artistic part of what we do to engage people, to get them thinking, is much more important than smacking people in the face with a message. So that's where I'll start. I know over the last few years, going into schools, for example, I've had to really be careful with my message. You never know when you present something at a school, those kids are going home and they're going to talk to their parents about what happened that day. And so you want to be careful what you're putting out there. I try to do things that are truthful, honest, connected to things that are easily verified, but also empowering. I don't want to have an audience leave anything that I do where they feel paralyzed, made to feel guilty, or that they can't, as Woody would say, that they're not worth anything, that they can't make a difference in the world. And I'll just stop there.
Wow, that's very powerful. Thank you. That makes me think about a lot of things. Kemp, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I concur with what Reggie was saying. For me, I was that kid who listened to all kinds of music when I was growing up, and I very shyly and bashfully was part of the glee club in high school and the gospel chorus in my mother's church. And I sort of began writing songs early, and I think I went through that period of where when you first start writing, you're writing about your own personal experience, and they were like love songs, and I was writing about love, and I got hurt, and somebody left me, and blah blah blah. And then as I got older, I was a teacher for 38 years. And so I think everything that Reggie was saying in terms of as you're working with young children, but for me, older people are just children who got older. It's the same human dynamic that what I'm trying to do is express myself. I'm trying to reflect what I see. But at the same time, I want to be taken in, and I want to be absorbed in a way that it means something and that there is a difference being made. I think this country has sort of changed my writing, and I tend to write from a very social consciousness point of view, sort of some people might say a political point of view, although I don't see it really so much as politics as much as if you're 72 years old and you remember being born in North Carolina when they had colored only signs and white only signs, and you went through the civil rights movement, and you had your draft card at age 18 for Vietnam, and you went through all of that, and you came through the 80s, and you came to having the first African American president, and you had all that change, and only to sort of come full circle to where we are now. I tend to reflect on all of that stuff that I've seen in this lifetime of mine, and I don't really want to preach to anyone. I think there are enough outlets that do that. I think that people get their TikTok and their Instagram and their Facebook, and they're so polarized by what they see. So I don't really want to be a part of that. I just don't have room in my life for that kind of hate. So I tend to not preach, but more reflect what I'm saying. And if I can do a piece where I know that someone who's listening, we may have totally opposite political views, we may have totally different values that from different places, but if that person can walk up to me at the end of a performance, like I had one man walk up and say, your songs make me want to do better. And I thought, wow, there's not much more I can ask for than that. I mean, I love when, people, this is great. But when people just give you a sense of what you did changed me, and maybe not in terms of just how I view, but it touched me and it changed me. So I think that sense of bringing someone your truth, bringing someone your authentic self, but also knowing that I'm not here to change you into anything. I'm just here to reflect and to share, and I hope you take something away from it, so that my writing tends to come from that place, from that point of view. And even when I get a little politically, like the new album that I have, it's called The America Chronicles. Shameless plug, by the way, for that. But the entire album is sort of based on that, just reflections of this 72-year-old gay black man who's been in this world, and I'm just sharing with you what I've seen. If it angers you, you have to decide, are you angry because I said it? Are you angry because it's true? What is it that bothers you? And if it means nothing to you at all and you just thought it was a great beat, God bless you, you can have that as well. But that's sort of where I come from in terms of when I perform and when I write. So as Reggie said, I'll leave it there because I want to hear what other people have to say as well. Hey, Carrie, it's good to see you. I see actually who you are now. Okay, hi.
Lady A, you raised your hand. I'm going to ask Jillian to say something after, but go ahead, Lady A. You have a question or a thought? And you'll have to unmute, probably.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I said I'm probably the total opposite. I'm the in your face activist, community activist, artist. With the things, as you said, going through the civil rights, going to the counter, sitting at the counter, those kind of things. I educate during my shows, especially when I have intimate shows. Festivals, I do the same thing, but it's harder to do it when you're at festivals because they're so big, but still I have a message in my music. And I let my audience know that there's a message in the music. My lyrics are in your face. They are true because I believe that I always tell my audience, you should not leave here the way you came. Something that is said, something that has been sung should change your heart in some type of way. I want people to smile at people that they've never smiled at before. I actually tell them to turn around and smile at folks. Smile don't cost you nothing and it won't hurt you. It doesn't. I educate my students the same way that don't just sing about just anything. Know yourself and be authentic. So I'm gonna be my authentic self. I'm getting ready to do a Juneteenth event right now where I've seen on social media that they do not want me there.
Hmm.
It's an inaugural here in Washington, in Maple Valley, Washington. It's their inaugural Juneteenth event. And I went online and saw this message, and it's not the first time, but here in my home state, uh, it's it just to see that thread, that email thread about why are you doing Juneteenth? You're being separatist. You're da da da. You know, they're not talking to me. They're talking to whoever's putting this program on. So I think that I'm not changing my show. You know, I made the comment. I made one comment to say this is to bring us together. We can all celebrate. The whole point of authenticity and our uniqueness is that we are unique and we all bring something to the table. Being a Black female artist, sometimes I catch hell, but at the same time, I'm being me. And I have to be my authentic self because I went through hell to keep my name. You know, I went through hell for that. I saw what my mother went through. I've seen what other Black men have gone through. So as an artist, I have to be honest about what is happening in this country, especially now. So there's no tiptoeing around people's feelings and all that. My song, The Truth is Loud, shameless plug. The Truth is Loud talks about, and this, I wrote this song over during COVID, you know, about immigration laws and about our homelessness. We have a whole lot of other things to be worried about, you know. And so those are, I think that as artists, we have to be true to ourselves, but quit pussyfooting around. Tell your audience the truth. Be honest about it. And I think that my audiences are really receptive. I give out affirmation cards, you know, in my CDs. And if people don't buy a CD, take the card. If you don't want it, pass it on to somebody else that needs that positive vibe in their life. That's what I'm passing on, but I'm also passing on truth. So if you get mad at the truth, you need to look at yourself in the mirror. And I think we just need to be honest and help our audiences. I'm not there to berate them, but I am being honest with them because we all live a different type of life. And but in music, that brings us together. I mean, I'm not singing all activism songs during my shows. I'm singing songs that are funny and that will make you laugh, but also songs that will make you think, you know, in the same at the same time. So that's just my 2 cents. That's how I deal with it. And I'm dealing with it daily. Like I said, Thursday I gotta go rah rah with some folks who really don't want me there. But it's gonna be all right. They're gonna love me by the time I leave.
There you go. Amen. Amen. I love that. That is awesome. Thank you so much. And if anybody else wants to chat, whatever, raise your hand. Wow, thank you, Lady A. That was awesome. I'm pumped right now. Thank you. Jillian, I have a question for you. You've been doing a lot of online playing, you
Right.
pretty much quite a bit actually. And have you found yourself in the last few years having to change your online chat, your performance?
I have so many thoughts after hearing all this. In solidarity, Lady A. I want to say that, you know, look, I only started playing music again 6 years ago, and writing my own music again 6 years ago. So if you asked me if I hadn't done that, maybe it would be different. But I spent 21 years in the labor movement since, and I don't shy away from that experience or my career. And so when people find that out, they pretty much have an idea about where my political beliefs may lie. On top of the fact that, you know, I think being a woman and any, you know, and a woman of color and first generation American, right? My parents are Filipino. A lot of people have no idea, by the way. They're all like, "What are you?" Which is a really cool question to ask somebody. Not, don't ever do that. But I think it's important to note that you can ask. There are other ways to ask. I'm just saying. You can ask. There are definitely better ways to ask somebody. But I think that so in real spaces, yeah, there might. I should also clarify that I because I do this work day in day out and I have for so long, it's been really hard for me to write about it. Um, and I think that, you know, the it's coming. Trust me, there are people in this chat, one in particular who very much wants me to write about it, and I have to. I'm working on it, but I think that. But I play other people's songs. I play at protest rallies. I play at all those things, labor, everything. Um, Online for me is different, and I say that because if I'm on MySpace, not MySpace, if I'm in my Facebook page, is anybody still on MySpace? If I'm on my Facebook page, my YouTube, my Instagram, whatever, my TikTok, that's MySpace. I get to say what I want to, however I want to, and I don't care, right? There is some part of me that always wants to be a little bit thoughtful about. As my partner told me after I found out that this guy who followed me was like a total Trump supporter, he's like, you can't choose your fans, and that's true. And so you don't necessarily want to turn them off, but if you're coming into MySpace, it's MySpace, and I'm definitely going to say my truth as well. I think that by the act of us as songwriters going out there and sharing our truth, no matter what it is revolutionary act to begin with. So you can leave, you can click by, you can scroll on by, you can do whatever you want to. But I think that in those spaces, Tom is still waiting on. Yeah, that's right. He's still waiting for friends on MySpace. I think we were friends back in the day, but I didn't know him very well. I think that if you show up to my live stream, which I do monthly, I will always be wearing some sort of political shirt, right? Like I'm fully celebrating the month, Happy Pride Month, happy, Asian Pacific Islander Month. Like I constantly am doing this kind of stuff, and I'm playing songs that matter, right? Like Deportee or any other sharing protest songs, the good protest songs from before. I think that it is important as an artist to be in your truth. I also think that there is something to be said about safety. I've definitely been in places where I've been told like, not here, just be careful. And I always find a tongue-in-cheek way to deal with that, but I also recognize that people are telling me that for my own safety, so I try and heed that. But at the end of the day, I'm proud of the work I've done and the people that I work for, and so I have no issue, telling people who I am, because it is who I am, all around. But you know, it can be a very difficult line to walk, especially if I'm south of the Mason-Dixon line. I don't know about the rest of you. I've definitely been in places where it's like manifest destiny backwards. I'm probably the only person of color they've ever seen in their entire lives, and here I am singing songs. And I think that those are places where I'm a little bit more cautious, but definitely it can be a difficult place to be. I do think that I just saw somebody this weekend who I think you all know, some of you know, Ben Gage actually was giving a concert this weekend, and he sort of started to go into this, and he was like, I assume I'm in a safe space, and the whole audience is like, yes, you're fine, and then he went on. So I think that was like, actually, I took a note. I was like, that's actually a really nice way of dealing with it, but he approached it, and then he waded in fully. But I think that if you get that opportunity, cool. If you're in a space where you can be in people's faces, go for it. But there's always a sense of caution. And I can understand in educational spaces, with parents involved, that you want to be a little bit more cautious about that, to what Kemp and Reggie were saying. But online, you're in MySpace. You know, you can swipe by. I have no issue with that. So sorry, that was a long way of answering your question.
Thank you. No, that's great. Kim?
Yeah, I wanted to sort of respond to. I love what Lady A and Jillian had said. I mean, I went down to Muscle Shoals to record, and I'm going down with the first song that we're going to do. I'm going down, and there are these incredible session musicians there down at Fame Studio, and my husband did some research, and we were in the reddest part of Alabama. And I thought, okay, I'm coming in to do these songs. The first song we were going to do, it was called Tulsa. And it was dedicated to the folks who live in Oklahoma who had no idea what that massacre was even about. And the first line of the song is, America's been had again. Some white folks done got mad again. But let's not worry. We'll just pretend that everything's okay. And I'm thinking, I don't know what these musicians' politics are about. They don't know mine. So I'm very clear with my politics. I just tend to, like, I won't come and say this person is an asshole because you did this, but I reflect back exactly what it is that I'm feeling. So when I got to the end of Tulsa, the close line is, and we'll pretend that Tulsa is just a city in the state of Oklahoma. And I had some people who said, you should just say in the state of okay. And it was to not make people from Oklahoma feel bad. And I thought, yeah, but I bet a lot of people felt bad the night of that massacre. So I'm not really interested in making people feel better as much as expose my truth. And as Lady A said, it's like if you have an issue with that, you've got to analyze what it is about you that this would bother you quite so much. And if it bothers you that much, then make a change. Make some change in that. But yeah, I put it out there. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Reggie.
I love what I've been hearing, and in particular, the idea, as I said, of being authentic. I've been doing this for 50 years, and the in all kinds of situations, in all kinds of states, I've been privileged to be, as some here, the first blackface that kids, adults have seen. Um, I've had people leave my shows and say to the sponsor that he's just trying to make us feel guilty about our grandparents. I've had a black woman in Connecticut, come up to me after a program on the Underground Railroad and say, you went a little easy on them, didn't you? Because the rest of the audience was all white. She waited until everybody was gone to come up and say that to me. I said, well, there are a lot of ways to make a point. I tell a lot of hard stories. I frame them in ways that connect to the humanity of it. But the fact of the matter is, I'm often talking about the history of our nation, civil rights, and lynchings, and all sorts of injustices. So I think again, um, you have to figure out. I have no idea in most of my audiences what people are thinking. I have people who come up and say, I looked at your website before I came, and the only reason I'm here is you looked hopeful. I don't know what that means. I know what I know that I present an image that I'm approachable. But I also have a friend, the performer Chris Pierce, who's like 6'3", 6'6", 300 pounds, and he tells me that after concerts, people are coming up wanting to fight him. I'm thinking, it doesn't fortunately happen to me, but he's 6'3", 300 pounds. Why in heaven's name would anybody come up and want to fight him? But yeah, going into schools, I know that particularly now, there's a lot on the line. And so I just think, as Lady A said, you have to understand what your mission is. You have to understand what your purpose is. You have to understand what your material is. I have material that can go from smacking people in the face to, windows of the heart, So in that space, as we all know, as performers and as writers, we make choices. And as I've gotten older, I've made more challenging choices because after 50, I decided everybody doesn't have to like me. Uh, but at the same time, for my message to get across, they have to relate to me. That's me. So I think when you're looking at the material that you have, when you're looking at uh, what it is you're putting out in the world, it's just good to understand long term what you're building. Because you want those people to be able to come back and see you again. I had one woman come up to me at the end of a show with Greg Greenway. We're doing Deeper Than the Skin, talking about him growing up in the racist South and me growing up in the racist North. And our friendship across that. And a woman came up to me after the show, and we're standing at the CD table, and she just says, I was really impressed by your show tonight. I just want to share with you that my family owned slaves. And I said, thank you for sharing that. And then we looked at each other for 30 seconds, and then she said, that's it. And I said, well, thanks for coming. She wheeled around and left the building. I'm not in control of what happens, but I'm in control of what I do, and I'm in control of the message that I send out.
Oh, thanks. Dan and Faith, you have a hand raised. One of you does.
Yeah, we have two songs that we're promoting and singing everywhere we go that raise issues. Faith wrote this fabulous piece called My Name is George, and it's a duet. And she sings the part of a trans boy being afraid to tell family. Um, and I sing the part of the father accepting the kid at the end of the song. Um, it doesn't hit people over the head. I hope it hits them in the heart. It's rare that I don't see tears in the audience.
Yeah, we were at Surfa back in May, and Reese Shad's keynote speech, which was brilliant, by the way, talked about, you know, so a lot of the songs that he does, he says, are parables. They're there not to, you know, not to whack you over the head, but to teach you a lesson without you realizing that you're getting a lesson. And as we're listening to this, we're thinking to ourselves, yeah, that's kind of what we're doing, is we're presenting this as, you know, it's two people having a discussion with the audience and then with each other. And, you know, people, you know, can read what they want. And we've played that everywhere we perform around the country, including places like Florida.
In Kansas.
And afterwards, people come up and start telling us about their trans kid or their trans cousin or their trans friend. And we have yet to have a negative reaction to that song anywhere in the country. And it's just that we're not, you know, smacking them over in the face and telling them that they, you know, what opinion they need to have around trans people. We're just giving them a point of view of, you know, two people who are, you know, personally involved in it. And we
finding
try to
common ground.
and finding ways to have common ground. And, you know, I'm sure there are people in the audience who are like, you know, trans, whatever, but they don't come up to us afterwards.
And we've had great response to that. And the other song is one I wrote, Se llama Juanita. It's the tale of a woman coming to the southern border seeking asylum, and explains her story and why she comes. And the bridge gets a little more direct than the rest of the song. The bridge talks about the fact that the CIA overthrew governments in Central America and made it unlivable. But we get people there after telling about a personal story, and end with a little bit of Spanish that translates to, her name is Juanita. Let her in.
Story is key.
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing that. David Abrams, have your hand up. Just have to unmute. Did we lose him? David,
There we go.
And unmuted,
There you
but
go.
he's not coming through.
So, you know, I'm a Jewish artist based in Orlando, Florida. And this is I'll tell you, this is a very difficult time for Jewish artists. One friend of mine had a whole tour that she had planned in South America canceled because she wouldn't sign a statement. She's a native Israeli, and she had to disavow her country to enter into there. I was actually looking for a Utah Phillips record in the library, and someone came up to me and started screaming at me to get out of Israel. We're you know, it's an odd time. I'm hearing from my Jewish artist friends that we're not getting booked. People are worried about our security, things like that. I'm a former synagogue president. When I go to my synagogue here in Orlando now, there are 5 armed guards. That didn't used to be a part of our lives.
Right.
There used to be no thing. You know, we went cameras, and you know, it impacts my art in as much as how much Jewishness do I put out there for a stage? Am I inviting a problem? I have a song that I do that's about an Israeli soldier, about a young boy who comes back with PTSD from the experience. And, you know, how much do I give the audience the backstory of it? It's not a story glorifying war or violence. It's actually hoping for peace. But I worry about these things, and where do I go as an artist? I don't know all the answers to these questions. You know, I feel like I'm kind of I'm in this river that's just flowing around, and I don't have much control about it. And I think the Jewish community as a whole, the people that I know, we really feel adrift because we don't feel like we have a home on the right or the left. Most of the Jewish people I know are very uncomfortable with the government's anti-Semitic, you know, stuff that's going on, which is just a pretext for, we feel, as a pretext for oppression. but it's a really confusing time for us. And how much of our identities do we put out? You know, things like that. So that's kind of my situation when I'm trying to navigate. The only other thing I'll say is that um, I am coming to my folk music career after a career as a trial lawyer, and one of the golden lessons they teach with young trial lawyers: never be the hero of your trial. Or you have to make the judge and stuff. And that's something I'm trying to use, and it seems to be working in my songs that I don't ever tell my listeners what opinion they should have at the end of the song. I really try to tell them a story that I hope will influence them and maybe change their view.
Mm.
Uh, but I don't know. That's what I've got to share. Thank you for listening
No,
to me, guys.
thank you so much for sharing. Reggie, or Kemp, or anybody have any thoughts? It's hard.
I'll just say that, David, I'm glad that you shared your thoughts and your experience. It's one of the problems. I'll call it a problem, but it's a problem with humanity. There are not a lot of safe spaces, and the spaces that we think are safe often aren't. People are always saying, "Well, you're preaching to the choir." My comeback has always been, well, the choir needs a lot of rehearsal. We are not as welcoming, we are not as compassionate, and we are not as able to have conversations, particularly now with, as far as Jews are concerned, with Gaza and with the Palestinians. It's been that way, obviously, for a long time, but it's certainly heightened now, and I feel for you. I'm having some really difficult conversations with some really close friends of mine over this issue, and they're difficult. We are not, Alistair Mook, who I work with frequently, is Jewish, and several other friends, and we are finding, because of the depth of our relationship, that we can go there. So we do. But it's not an easy place to live in the public, and I can see how your songs and your music and your experience would call a lot of attention to you, and I'm sorry that that's true, but that is where we live. I can resonate with that as a black man in America, but it's also a different situation. So I applaud you for taking it on. I will just say, if you want to have a conversation at some point, you sound like you've hit on a couple of things that might make your journey easier or make your job easier. But when I look at Facebook or dialogues that are going on, even within the music community, and the animosity that comes out when someone just shares their point of view or their opinion, I realize why people are being driven underground with this and afraid to say anything. And certainly audiences are going to respond to that as well. So I certainly don't have any easy answers, but we have to increase the ability of dialogue certainly in our community, so that people have an opportunity to, turn these things over and brainstorm and find, we obviously cannot control what the political powers are doing, except that we can stand together. So I'll say that.
Thank you, Reggie. Really appreciate that. Brent or David, did you want to respond?
No, just to say thank you, Reggie. I think it was very well said, and I appreciate it.
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, before we go on to Brent, Lady A has a question. Oh, I love that question, because I'm sure the answer is yes. Has anybody in their show been told to just shut up and sing instead of... Besides Jack Hardy's career. Kemp, you got your hand up there.
Yeah, I actually wrote a song called "This Is America Right," and in part of it, I asked the question. I sort of lay out what I'm thinking politically, and the chorus says, "Do you want me to tell you I'm sorry? Would it make you feel better if I just shut up?" And at that point, I have the audience yell, "Shut up!" And I put all the stuff that I do, and so I said, "Listen, I really want you to yell at me for this." And so yeah, but they take it in the sense, I tend to come from that place of Randy Newman. Just, I love his approach to the way he satirized. And if I could get away with singing Rednecks at one of my concerts, I definitely would. If you don't know what that song is, I would do Rednecks on a heartbeat. But I also thought about what David said in terms of the fact that when you go to a venue, Reggie and I played at a Phil Oakes night in Albany recently, and there was really a palpable feeling from the promoter and from what was happening there that we don't want to have a song where someone says, you know, Donald Trump is a jerk. We don't want that. And if you and how you and it wasn't censorship, but it was definitely you felt the concern. And I know that I can be pretty outspoken, and I sometimes think in terms of venues. It's like, okay, if you bring me in there, you know, this is what you're going to get. And I remember opening for pretty well-known artists who kind of had some concerns about what some of the choices I had. And this was his show, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna change, you know, one of the pieces that I'm doing, because that was just out of respect that I was opening for you, and it was awesome. But I think that sense of we find ourselves being concerned with things that we never thought we would have to think of at some other time. And at the most random moments, something pops into your head, like, if I do this, you know, what's the ramification of that? So, I wrote a piece called The Pledge of Obedience. And it simply says, I pledge obedience to the flag of the divided states of America, and to the Republicans for what they've planned, corporations under God, unregulatable with liberty and justice for some. And it's written in a very kind of Randy Newman kind of way. And my thing again with that is, when I write, it's like you have to choose what would upset you if it upsets you. I'm very fortunate that my audiences let me go anywhere that I want to go. But I always come down to that point that I'm not berating you. As Lady A said, I'm not berating you. I'm not here to tear you down. I'm not making myself a victim, because I don't want to ever be a victim. But at the same time, I'm just expressing truth. And if you've got a problem with that, that's a you problem that you're going to need to work out. And a little bit later on, I want to run a lyric by you folks just to see if it's too soon, but I'll get to that later.
Maybe we'll go out on that. Brant Miller, you had your hand up.
Yeah. This, Brant, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. And yeah, this is great discussion. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I write some things that are, you know, I guess you call it political or activist, or songs for change. And I just want to make something. This is not one of those songs, but I was at several years ago with a trio I'm in occasionally. We had a song we do called Naked on the Back Porch. And two of the guys have written it about, you know, anyway. And so we were afraid to play it. We had a gig at a church here close by in Nashville. And well, we better not play that one. And then we got there on stage, and the preacher said, "Hey, I heard your CD. You gonna play that song, Naked on the Back Porch?" And so we all kind of laughed. Okay, the preacher wants to hear it, so we're gonna play it. But anyway, that's not really what I was here to say. Yeah, I'm on Facebook a bit and promoting my music some, and fellow songwriter who I'm friends on Facebook, that's about it. We got an argument about, you know, I posted about the rallies that I attended No King's Day, and he's on the other side, and he was, you know, pushing back, and we had a kind of civil conversation, and finally he started hurling some insults and you know, about, hey, you can go whine all you want for change, and that was kind of what he said, whining for change. So I said, well, sorry, I thought we were going to have a civil conversation, but goodbye, and I actually unfriended him. I rarely do that. This kind of goes to what my point was, that I'm, you know, I like to write songs about, you know, getting together, kumbaya, reconciliation, and I wrote one called Something We Can Agree On. That's just two folks, let's get together, have a beer, you know, on the patio, and find something we can agree on. And but I feel at this point it's hard to try to come together with people who are totally opposed to what your views are, and also to write songs about, to, you know, a lot of songs about that. Well, I wish we would just work it all out, you know, but it's hard. It's so hard to do now that, you know, democracy and justice and all these things are on the line. So, and there is a group called Braver Angels, which I've, you know, gone to a few things with them, and they have songwriting workshops, which I think is a great. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they do have a musical branch of it, trying to bring people together, different sides, talking about it and writing songs in this case about it. And I think that would be an interesting thing to do.
Mhm.
But I just want to bring it's hard to feel like writing songs that we're going to, you know, try to get closer together. And I sure would love everyone to be closer together, but you got to defend, you know, there's a red line there, and you can't say, I'm going to go across it either. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Let me just
yeah.
pop in here for, you
Yeah.
know, I'll share one of the changes I made over the last 2, 3 years. As a result, Greg and I, and also Alistair and I, we do question and answers at the end of our presentations. And so we take all comers, and, you know, people ask what they want to ask, and it gets interesting sometimes. But what I started to realize probably about 3 years ago was that, you know, we want to give people hope, and we want to give people a sense that that they're not going into the void of you know, of total frustration and endless agony. But the fact of the matter is that we as human beings have been working at this thing of getting along, and the arts have addressed this for as long as there have been musicians and artists, so Greg and I had a conversation, and what we decided to do was we decided to stop feeding the myth that all this is going to just work out. We are not going to end racism in our time. We're not going to end homophobia. We're not going to end any of those things, because they're part of the human condition. They are part of what humans do. So that changes, you know, it's not that I don't do songs. I got a ton of songs, you know, In the Shelter of Each Other, The Windows of the Heart, are all songs that I realize that in the audience, people are in different places. You know, some people are working and committed already and are trying their best. They need support and help to stay on the path and to feel that their efforts are paying off, because they are in the long run. But we're also inviting people who've never thought about justice issues or true freedom or any of these issues, environmental, anything, who have never made that a part of their work or their life or their art, you know. And for those people, it's a hard sell to say, well, we want you to join this effort, but it's never going to end. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. However, the point is, you know, why are you doing what you do? Which goes back to who are you and what is your message? We do this because we're musicians, you know. We're doing this because we're called to do it, because nobody in their sane right mind would get up on stage and do what we do. You know, asking people to like me, like my song, like my music, you know. I mean, that's not a normal thing. So understanding that this is kind of a crazy thing that we do, we have to get in touch with why we do it. And so that's where the whole point of being authentic and figuring out what your deal is. And then you don't have to lie to people. You know, I fully believe that songs and community effort will change the world. But I also know it's going to take a whole long time, as those who worked in any of those movements before also knew. So we just sign up to do our part. And our songs, if they're well crafted and our performances are thoughtful and creative in whichever direction that we think we want to take it, they'll matter. And they will reach people. But they're not going to reach everybody. So we just have to get used to the fact that that's what we're working with.
Oh man, Thank you. I know Jillian said she had her hand up quickly, but I didn't see her hand up. So Jillian, then Amy.
So hi everybody. I've been listening to what everybody's saying, and I just want to make a few points because they sort of just came to me. One, one of the frustrating parts of being alive in this moment is that it's not that this stuff never existed; it's that they were hiding it, right? And I think, and honestly, if you look at history, because I'm also a history person, that like it's not the first time that they were hiding it, right? They were openly doing this crap before. They might have been wearing hoods or other things, but I do think that it's important to note that like this, it's unprecedented. I'd love to just live in precedented times, but we don't have that luxury. And we certainly don't have that luxury as songwriters. And I think that it is part of our job to point out what's going on. And I think what's the most frustrating thing is something that you've all sort of said here, or I know that people have been talking about, which is we have lost the ability to communicate with each other. You're either this or you're that, and it could be you could be as left as you want to and still be shunned by the left because you are not agreeing with them 100%, and vice versa. And it's really frustrating to have a difference of opinion or even understand nuance or history, right? I think that that is part of what has been so frustrating for I think all of us, just generally, as I can, if I can say that. And I think that like everything that everybody's saying, it comes down to what it is that you are most comfortable doing. And sometimes that means living in the discomfort, and sometimes it means being in your face, and sometimes it means, you know what, today I'm just going to hide because I could get hurt here. Like there's all of those things are true, and it's okay to be all of those things. But if what we're asking is, how do you manage this? It's just a hard time to manage all of these things happening at once, and to witness the fall of the democracy is a whole other thing that I think is not precedented either, right? So I think that all of that is very true and sort of just the situation that we're in. But I do think that as one of the things that we can do, and I think everybody's sort of saying it, is asking people to think and how they think. I think the other thing to remember is that like it's easy, especially if you live in like a town where most people look like you or think like you, or you live in social spaces where everybody thinks like you. It's really easy to forget that some of these folks just don't have the experience. They don't know. They don't have our life experience. I don't have their life experience, right? Like Kemp, I can't sing the redneck song either. I can't say a lot of things that I'd like to say, but sometimes I say them. But and
Well,
and
I'm
I do
gonna.
get I mean, I get in trouble for them all the time, but I could care less. I think that it's one of those things where, you know, that is what's missing. And sometimes we can be those people to provide that, whether you're in your face or not, right? It's about thinking, and it's also about making other people think. And also, I mean, I've also been in situations where, I was at somebody invited me to play at their place, and it turns out they're a total opposite politically of me, and they knew that going in because I clearly don't hide that and who I am. And we had a really great conversation where it was just like, instead of attacking each other, it was just like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't see that situation that way. This is how I saw that situation. It's like brokering peace or diplomacy again, right? But having that but even just being able to have that conversation, or somebody knowing willingly and bringing me in, knowing that I completely disagree with everything, is how it starts. It's how we start. And to what Reggie said, we're not going to solve racism in our time. This stuff is like the good news is generations are starting to do that. The bad news is the backlash has been pretty crazy. By as seen in the last it's only been 6 months. I hate to say it, but it's true. It's only been 6 months, and I live in this town, and I every day it's like a whole new hell. And I just think the way we survive is by honoring and respecting where people are, and also recognizing that like sometimes you can be in your face, sometimes you can't, and that's okay too. But this how we share our experiences and how we show up and showing each other how we have those conversations are really important. So I just wanted to thank everybody for your honesty and for being here, because I think I'm learning a lot too.
Thank you so much. We got a few minutes left. Oh, no, wait. We got Amy and then Carolyn and Kemp. You're going to end it.
I will try to be quick because my internet continues to be somewhat wonky. But first of all, thank you to everybody who is here, everybody who has spoken. This has been a phenomenal discussion, and I'm so, so grateful to all of you. Lady A's question earlier made me think of a Mary Gauthier show I went to a few years ago where somebody hollered at her, "No politics," and she immediately snapped up. She said, "No, no, no, no. I am here to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed." And and I know she's not the first one who said that, but I just love that line so much. And as somebody who is a queer person myself and an artist in other ways myself, sitting in an audience and hearing echoes of my life or life of other marginalized peoples that are being reinforced from the stage and feeling less alone as a result of that, even if there are the people who don't understand it, it's really, really comforting. It is comforting to hear that kind of thing from the stage and know that other people out there see who we are and experience what we are. And so I'm just grateful for all of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Yay. Well said, Caroline.
Just quick, hey, you guys, wow, what a conversation. I'm so glad I came. I'm so glad I came. It's inspiring and beautiful in so many ways. And thank you, everybody who was out there on stages doing the work. And I love what I just heard from Amy A. I'll start there because that's great. I think it was Woody Guthrie who said that, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, who said disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. And I do take those words seriously. I think that's kind of our job and our responsibility as performing songwriters. I'm also going to tag on to things that other people said real quick about, we talked about teaching, we talked about educating an audience, we talked about, taking them a place that we want them to go. That is true, but I think even further than that, or maybe the more overarching thing, and y'all can disagree with me here maybe, but I think it's our responsibility to tell the truth. Not necessarily the literal truth. I'm not a history teacher anymore. I'm not, I'm not here to be didactic with people, but I am here to tell an emotional truth. And I think if we write the stories and we tell the emotional truths, be they our own truths or the truths of other people, that those messages can get through. And we can say those things without, excuse me, whitewashing. We can say the truth as it exists to us. And hopefully people will start to hear us if we speak to their hearts and not necessarily just, not necessarily telling them what they want to hear. When you speak to a person's heart, you kind of want to soothe them, but you want to comfort, but you want to comfort them by not telling them lies, by telling them the truth. That's really all I got to say. And thank you all for your beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Kemp, to Jillian, to Reggie, but Kemp, you have one last thing and a lyric to share.
First, I want to say to Brent Miller, don't have conversations with folks on Facebook. You can't, there's no winning. I used to go on Facebook and I would hit the like button, the angry button, the share button, the blah, blah, and I would just get into these rants with people that I didn't know. And I'm like, well, why am I wasting time? So I don't do that anymore. I just promote my shows, the music. So don't do that. It'll just make you crazy. So yeah. I would also say, go on Spotify and check out the America Chronicles so that you can hear how I do message. But this is the kind of messaging that I tend to not do. And if I do this record, I would probably have to do it under a pseudonym. But I'm thinking about all the folks who have supported, the whole MAGA thing and the Trump thing, and they all did it because they thought they were going to get something out of it. So when I put on my Randy Newman satirical, pithy political hat, it has something that goes a little bit like this. Whatever happened to good old Tim Scott? He was the first one that MAGA forgot. But they do unto others, but not unto you. You forgot you was in words too. Give a better. What? Too soon? Too soon? I'm not going to put that out anytime.
Never
not,
too soon.
Oh, put it out. Put it out. Put it
Too
out.
soon.
Randy,
Topical.
Hey, can you write a verse for Byron Donalds?
oh, I got a verse for everybody.
Oh, God.
I had a verse for Snoop Dogg. Forget Snoop Dogg, the last jigaboo. He forgot he was in words too. So anyway, I am very, like Freebo said when he produced the record, I love the fact that you don't accuse people, la da da da. But when I get really worn out after watching too much MSNBC, that's the kind of thing I write. But it won't be on a record anytime soon. But you're my friends, you know that, so you got it here before anybody. This conversation has been awesome. I thank everybody. This has been so.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I know there's other panels happening now. I know we could probably sit here for another hour or two, but I want everybody to get to the other panels. Thank you, Jennifer's here. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Folk Alliance for putting this together. and Cindy Cogbill especially, because she did the lion's share of all this work. Thanks everybody for being here. I have it taped. I've kept the chat. Of course, I have no idea where on my computer that chat is, but I will find it if anybody needs it. Thanks, bye. Bye, everybody.
Everyone.
All right.
Your
Thank you so
music,
much.
Kemp.
Bye-bye.